What is happening to the bees? I want to know about the bees. Please tell me about the bees.
Have you ever gone outside to admire the beauty of Mother Nature? While enjoying the outdoors, did you hear a strange, annoying buzzing sound? Well, that noise is bees doing their work. Sure, bees seem scary, but they are actually saving the earth. Believe it or not, the beauty of Mother Nature would not exist at all if not for bees. Technically, not even humans, despite our technology, would survive without bees for long. Sadly, bees have been dying in large numbers in recent years. No one quite knows why, but I think we have an idea.
There are a lot of factors that go into the disappearance of bees, one being insecticides. The class of insecticides we will be talking about are called neonicotinoids, and we will be talking about 4 parts of the class: imidacloprid, clothianidin, acetamiprid, thiacloprid, and thiamethazam. First, let's talk about what neonicotinoids are. They are a relatively new class of insecticides that share a common mode of action that affects the central nervous system of insects, resulting in paralysis and death. Now on to the separate parts of the class. Imidacloprid is used in agriculture as foliar and seed treatments, along with indoor and outdoor insect control. This insecticide goes by the names of Merit, Admire, and Advantage and is the most popular. It is moderately toxic and is linked to neurotoxic, reproductive, and mutagenic effects. It has been found highly toxic to bees along with other beneficial insects. Imidacloprid produces sublethal effects in honeybees, which include disruptions in mobility, navigation, and feeding behavior. Clothianidin is neurotoxic and highly toxic to bees. In 2008, there was a massive bee die-off in Germany that was subsequently associated with this insecticide. This was given conditional registration in the U.S. in 2003 without sufficient data to support its registration. Current data gaps include a lack of field tests for honeybees. Acetamiprid has population-level effects on honeybees, even though it has a low acute toxicity. Certain neonicotinoids interfere with honeybee reproduction, ability to navigate, and temperature regulation, much like the ones listed, and any of which can have an effect on long-term survival of honeybee colonies. Thiacloprid is targeted to control sucking and biting insects in cotton and vegetables. However, low doses of this insecticide are highly toxic to insects like honeybees. Thiamethazam is a systematic insecticide that is absorbed and transported to all parts of a plant. Once bees and pollinators eat the pollen, the compound interferes with nerve cell information exchange, paralyzing the insect, and it is considered moderately toxic but highly toxic to bees.
Christopher Connolly, a neuroscientist at the University of Dundee in Scotland, studies bee brains. His hypothesis is that the pesticides that bees come in contact with affect the way their brain cells talk to one another. The brain cells talk using chemical signals, also known as neurotransmitters. During this process, bees learn the flowery scents and certain landmarks which lead their way back home. Connolly set up an experiment to discover how pesticides affect the conversations between the brain cells. He started by selecting 3 common pesticides, 1 to kill varroa mites, and 2 known as neonicotinoids, or neonics for short. He proceeded his experiment by removing the brains of honeybees and bumblebees and put them in watery baths. Then he inserted a tiny probe into the cell of the mushroom body of each brain. This probe recorded electrical signals. Every time the cells communicated, the probe would receive an electrical pulse. Then he injected a small amount of the 3 pesticides individually in the bee's brain baths. With the neonicotinoids, the brain became very chatty, being that he only added the same amount an insect might encounter eating on plants sprayed with these pesticides. The results for the pesticides used in beehives to kill mites was even worse. They stopped the enzymes from doing their job, so the old messages were not hushed, making the brain even noisier. With the cells being too chatty, it makes the brain very noisy and messages might be lost, causing them to possibly miss landmarks. The scientists believed this could explain the disappearance of entire colonies of honeybees.
For a long time, people have been talking about a phenomenon known as colony collapse disorder among the world's bees. The phrase was coined in 2006 after a sharp rise in the number of disappearances of western honeybee colonies in North America. But it wasn't just limited to North America. Many countries in Europe also saw a rise in colony collapse, with Ireland reporting that as many as 50% of their bee colonies disappearing.
Whatever the causes of CCD are, it is still an alarming phenomenon. Thankfully, scientists don't believe that all bees are currently at risk of extinction, but it's still good to know what would happen if bees did go extinct. I'm going to mention 8 things that would happen. Number 1, no more honey. This one is obvious. Of course, if we didn't have bees, we wouldn't have honey. Think about it. No more honey for our tea, no honey for our biscuits or cornbread. Besides being delicious, honey also has many medicinal and cosmetic uses. Number 2, many fruits and vegetables could not grow. A United Nations report states that of the 100 crops that supply food to the majority of the world, 70 need bees to produce food. Nuts, berries, apples, avocados, melons, peaches, and grapes all need bees for pollination. An estimated half of the food in grocery stores would disappear without bees, and all you coffee lovers would have to say goodbye to your favorite drink. Number 3, no more dairy. Like the vegetables listed above, much of the food that dairy cows consume is pollinated by bees. Dairy cows require a complex diet and consume almost 100 pounds of food per day. Their main staple is alfalfa, which needs bees to pollinate. Dairy cows are also a big source of beef, so without them, the cost of beef would skyrocket. Number 4, no more cotton. Cotton, a staple of the clothing industry, needs bees to pollinate. Clothing that contains cotton are t-shirts, denim, underwear, and socks. Other things like bed sheets, diapers, and toilet paper are all made from cotton too. While synthetic fabrics are still available, the resources to make them are not as plentiful as cotton, so clothing costs would rise dramatically.
Number 5, our diets would change. As mentioned above, many fruits and vegetables would disappear, and beef would become too expensive for most people to afford. So what would we eat? Since animals like pigs, goats, and chickens eat a high diet in foods that do not need to be pollinated, these would become the main meat staples. Potatoes, tomatoes, and carrots also don't rely heavily on bees for pollination. Even so, the harvest of these vegetables would suffer a significant drop. Also, cooking oils like coconut, almond, canola, and sesame oil would be gone. Number 6, malnutrition. Humans require a lot of different vitamins, minerals, and nutrients to be healthy. Without a diverse diet, malnutrition would become a big problem. Crops that rely on bees for pollination provide a majority of the calcium, iron, fluoride, lipids, and vitamins C, A, and E. A lack of vitamin C could cause a scurvy epidemic, and even though we could survive without vitamin E, our immune systems would become weaker, so human health would suffer greatly without bees. Number 7, humans would become pollinators. If all the bees died, humans would become responsible for taking up the slack. This is already happening in China, where a majority of the bees have already died. People take buckets full of pollen and paint pollen with paintbrush, but this could only be done with a few plants that require pollination because they simply aren't enough for humans to perform the task. Also, the need for hand pollination would contribute to the next item on the list. Number 8, the cost of food would skyrocket. Since much of our food would become incredibly scarce and require hand pollination, the cost of food would dramatically increase. In fact, this has already happened in Scotland. During the winter of 2012, Scotland lost almost 1/3 of their honeybee colonies, which in turn caused food prices to soar. Coffee already costs quite a bit. Imagine how much it would cost if it had to be hand pollinated.
Here's 4 ways you can help save the bees. 1. Don't use any pesticides, fungicides, or herbicides on plants or in your garden. 2. Plant your garden with native and bee-friendly plants. 3. Do not weed your garden. Lots of those weeds are often excellent food and medicine for us too. 4. Educate yourself and your children about bees. Bees are not dangerous. They forage on flowers and do not attack humans.
There are over 4,000 species of wild bees in North America alone. Some are quite extraordinary, and honeybee is just one of them, which is not native as it was brought by the first settlers. It is estimated that 30% of the world crops and 90% of the wild plants need an insect like a bee to thrive. Without them, crops will die and the world will starve. There are many reasons all those bees are disappearing. Insecticides, pollution of rivers and water sources, pollution of the soil which contaminates plants like Roundup, extreme climates, reduction of wild prairies, monocrop culture, the extension of lawns, industrial beekeeping practices. The list is sadly too long. 40% of bee colonies died last year alone. Create bee safe zones, places where pollinators are safe and can find healthy food, water, and shelter.